Greetings and hello, everybody. Welcome back to the middle of the order for another episode here, a part of our TOPs. And today we're talking about your Detroit Tigers. And can I just say, very optimistic for the 2024 season. I like this team. I do. Looking at it top to bottom, it's fun. It's young. They've got guys. They're starting to get players that you know now. And, I mean, from the last 3, 4, even, 5 years, this is the most exciting Tiger team I've seen in a long time. The most, I'm, excited to, tune into a Tigers game here and there. So I'm very happy for them to have finally kind of, they're still in rebuild mode, but it really seems like some of the fruit of their labor is finally going to be paying off. And I think we'll see that first glimpse of it this year in 2024. And who knows, maybe it leads to a postseason berth for these guys. So taking a look, last year they were 78 and 84 when they finished the year. They were 17th in runs scored. They were 28th in runs for, 17th in ERA, and 19th in runs allowed. They finished second in the AL Central. I forgot about that. 9th in the AL as a whole, and then 19th overall in MLB. They have the 11th pick in the draft upcoming. That's the pick they should have. And I mean, even just last year, looking at that little numbers alone, 78-84, second in the AL Central, very promising stuff already for these guys. And I mean, the 28th in runs for definitely needs to change. They need to pick it up a little bit in the scoring department. Taking a look at who these guys added. They get some starting pitching help. Kenta Maeda comes over from the Twins. Jack Flaherty from Baltimore. Andrew Chafin, Miller. Mark Canha, who I'd say I'm very excited for. I love Mark Canha. Gio Urshela. And then, of course, they extended one of their kids, second baseman Colt Keith, to a 6-year deal. Expect to see him up this year, possibly even on the opening day roster. Who did they lose? The guy that hurts the most, Eduardo Rodriguez. He's off to Arizona, no longer a Tiger. And some other names here, Matthew Boyd, Jose Cisnero, part of a trade deal there. Nope, never mind, not a trade deal, that was just a signing. Spencer Turnbull, Austin Meadows, one of the guys on that Rays trade, and Jonathan Scope as well. So all those guys no longer Tigers. But can I just say, I do like this team already. The rotation is as follows. Tarek Skubal leads things off. He is the ace of that staff. Then Jack Flaherty and Kenta Maeda. 2 and 3, the guys that are new to the team. Matt Manning moves down to number 4 in the rotation. And then Reese Olson, who had a good year last year, he is slotted for the 5. The bullpen, some guys starting to know now. Alex Lang, he had a great year out of the bullpen for the Tigers. He is the closer listed here. Jason Foley, Will Vest, Andrew Chafin, and Shelby Milner are all part of that Detroit bullpen as well. But for me, it's the lineup. The lineup and the rotation is what's fun for me in this lineup. Is probably one of the better lineups we've seen in a long time, and considering as well, Miguel Cabrera also no longer with the team. Maybe should have mentioned that one as well. He is done as well and retired and is no longer a Tiger. And considering he's not part of this lineup anymore, I mean, there's actually some fun things happening here. Leading it off, Parker Meadows in center field, followed by one of the kids, Riley Green in right field, Spencer Torkelson at first base, Kerry Carpenter, the DH, batting 4th, Mark Canha batting 5th, playing left field. Love that for Canha. Right in the middle of that lineup. Colt Keith, the kid, second baseman, bats 6th. Javier Baez, the shortstop, who needs to figure things out. Gio Urshela at third base, bats 8th, and then Jake Rogers behind the dish. The bench, Carson Kelly, backup catcher, Andy Ibanez, Zach McKinstry, and Matt Vierling make up that Detroit Tiger bench. And can I just say, there are some names here that that aren't on this team, or not on the projected starting roster. And I mean, when you go through their farm system as well, I try to follow the farm systems a little bit of some teams. I mean, I look at the top prospects. These are names that I know. I mean, Jackson Joby, Max Clark, one of the top picks from last year's draft. Jace Jung, Jace Young, he's there. Dylan Dingler, a catcher for them in the farm system there. Wilmer Flores, and not the one you know, with the Giants. Wilmer Flores, a pitcher who's there. Ty Madden. I mean, they got 4 guys here, a part of their top, part of MLB's top 50 prospects. Jackson Joby, Max Clark, Colt Keith, and Jace Jung. Not to mention they have Keston Cura on a non-roster invitee deal. And I mean, if you remember his, start with the Brewers, I mean, it was very promising. And they also have this guy, Casey Mize, who is a top prospect who has dealt with injuries over the past year, but he can still be the ace of that staff, as well as Akil Baddoo, kind of a fan favorite when he first came up and still is, but right now he is listed to start the year in AAA, but who knows how the actual lineup will look. For next year, for the free agents next year, at the end of this year, some of the guys they signed this year, Jack Flaherty, Mark Canha, who they got in a trade, Carson Kelly, and Gio Urshela are all free agents. And then Andrew Chafin and Shelby Miller both have club options that the Tigers can choose to keep around for next year or not. But let's talk about this Detroit Tigers team because, like I said, there's a lot of exciting stuff when you look through this lineup. Like, I like the kids here. Not only like Colt Keith and Jackson Joby when he comes up. Like a lot of these players are very young. Riley Green, not even 24. Spencer Torkelson, not even 25. Those are like the first 2, kids that they've got their first full year under their belt now. Kerry Carpenter kind of came up last year as well. He's going to be 27, still on the older side here. The rotation's young. Tarek Skubal, I mean, he's been around for 2-3 years now, and he's finally coming into his own as an ace of that staff. Reese Olson, when he came up last year, he looked good as well. There's some things to be excited about right now if you're a Detroit fan. I mean, let's talk about some of those kids now, like Spencer Torkelson. I mean, when he first got his opportunity, people were wondering, oh no, this was our top prospect. And he kind of struggled in his rookie year in 2022. But last year, he looked a lot better. 159 games played. Very impressive. That is already to be only missing 3 games of the season. 141 hits, a 233 batting average, and a 758 OPS. The thing that was most, I'm sure most Tiger fans are happy about, he went from 8 home runs in his rookie year to 31 home runs last year. That's a huge jump. His slugging percentage from 319 to 446. He took huge steps forward from 2022 to 2023, and I think that's just the start. I think there's going to be another level to his game this year, possibly an all-star, finishing the year with an 800 OPS. He's going to get better. His team is getting better, around him as well. He is part of that, new Tigers wave, the new Tigers generation that is really here right now. There is a lot of exciting stuff here. Riley Green's probably one of my favorite Detroit Tigers. This guy, last year, he got his, dealt with a little bit of injuries at one point, played 99 games for the Tigers, had 11 home runs, 109 hits, a 288 batting average, and a 796 OPS. He could be the same as Spencer Torkelson in a way, because when he came up in 2022, he played 93 games, had a 253 batting average, and a 682 OPS. Both those numbers went up about 100 OPS points and about, 30 to 40 points in the batting average. His strikeout numbers were reduced. The home run numbers, he's not going to be a home run hitter, but he's a contact speedy guy at the top of the lineup there. That's big for Detroit because that's the kind of guy you want, leading off a game. He gets on base. He's a tricky out, and that's huge for Detroit, and I do really like Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson kind of leading the way now for these younger kids. Now, Colt Keith, if he is going to be on the opening day roster, their day one at second base, what kind of element can he bring to the Tigers team? Max Clark, when he gets a couple years in the farm system, he's a young kid. They just drafted him last year, how quickly can he get to the big leagues? Because if he's ready and he's, looks great and the prospects were all right about him and he's a star, this Tigers team could go on a bit of a run here in what is kind of a shallowest AL Central. Like last year, I talked about how I did not like the AL Central and it was not competitive and there were just bad teams. This year, looking at these teams so far, we've done, the White Sox and Royals and now the Tigers. I'm a lot more optimistic about what the AL Central can do. I feel like the Royals have a little bit of success coming. I feel like the Tigers have a lot of success coming. We haven't gotten to the Guardians and Twins yet, but even the Guardians, I feel like maybe they'll be a little bit better. Like it'll be interesting to see how the AL Central runs this year. But this Tiger team, there's stuff to be excited about, and there's potential. And there's one guy who had a lot of potential, and well, recently it's not been that. We're talking now about Javier Baez, a two-time All-Star, a World Series champion, a Gold Glove winner, a Silver Slugger, NLCS MVP with the Cubs in 2016, and has not been great for a long time now. And I say long time, but really the last 2 years. Since signing his mega deal with Detroit, since coming over to Detroit, he has not been the Javi Baez we've seen with the Cubs. He's not been the Javi Baez we've seen in general. 2021, he was with the Cubs, traded to the Mets, hit free agency, signed a deal with Detroit. In 2 years with Detroit, we're looking at both 2 years just combining it. 280 games, a 230 batting average, and a 633 OPS. 26 home runs with Detroit in 280 games, 26 home runs. He had 9 home runs in 47 games with the Mets with an 886 OPS. I don't know. This change of scenery for Javier hasn't worked for the way he'd wanted, hasn't worked for the way Detroit had wanted it. And, I mean, he just doesn't look like the same player. He has these stints where he does, like especially on the field, his defense is still immaculate. He still gets up there. But it just hasn't been there. The walk numbers are way down, like 24 walks to 125 strikeouts. Like last year was a 593 OPS. Last year was the worst OPS he'd posted in his career, except for his first year when he only played 52 games in 2014 and had a 551 OPS. But even that year, in 52 games, he had 9 home runs. This year, 136 games, 9 home runs. That's not cutting it. That's not what Detroit is paying him for. Like Detroit, he is the most expensive player on Detroit by far. He's making $25 million this year. The next two guys that come close are Jack Flaherty and Kenta Maeda, and that's $14 million. Like Javier Baez, they went out to get him to be the shortstop for this team, and it's kind of blown up in their face. They signed to a 6-year deal, and that goes up until 2028. They're stuck with Baez, and the only thing they can do is keep working with him and try to get that form back. And, when we talked about the Rockies, we talked about Chris Bryant in the same way. Like, the only, trio of Cubs that have still kind of kept up to pace has been the old guy, Anthony Rizzo, with the Yankees. He's still playing a great ball, having great numbers with them. But Bryant's fallen off. Baez has fallen off. Javier's going to be 31 this year. He's not the same 21-year-old kid. He's played 10 years in the big leagues already. Like, he's been around. And the thing I'll mention is, I think Chris Bryant could have some success. It could still find it. But I also think it's unlikely that he does. Baez, on the other hand, I feel like he has that extra level to get to, and I think he needs to keep working at it, and I think he will end up there. I don't know if it's going to be the young kids, or if he takes more of the mentor approach, and then, by doing so, he'll figure out his stuff. But there's a level to Baez that brings back the, 281 batting average, 290 batting average kind of success that he had with the Cubs in his All-Star years. He finished second in MVP voting in 2018. He led the league with 111 RBIs. We need that Baez for the Tigers, and that may have been 5-6 years ago, but I think Baez can get to that level. I do think this is going to be, think/hope/predict/ whatever word you want to use. This might be his best season with Detroit so far. It's hard to go lower than he has. He really hasn't been anything for Detroit all that great. I think there's a level that Baez he's kind of hit the rock bottom floor, and now it's about working his way back up, and I think that's the steps he's going to be taking this year as kind of the leader now on this team. Now without Miguel Cabrera there, some of these young kids, they're going to be looking to Baez, as his earlier days with the Cubs, and maybe they'll try to help him figure something out as well. Like, it's an interesting kind of relationships they have there. But the point is, and the whole spiel here, Baez needs to be better. And if Baez goes, this Detroit Tiger team could go, and they can go far, especially with good pitching. And speaking of that, I'm talking about Tarik Skubal, because this guy, I mean, there was a point where he looked awful when he first came up in COVID year. He came up the same time Casey Mize did in 2020, COVID year. And basically the idea was that Casey Mize was going to be this new superstar ace for the Tigers, and Skubal would be like the second man, like the right-hand guy next to him, like, oh, Mize does this incredible thing, and I'm going to come out and do my job as well. And it's kind of been a little bit of the opposite since, the last 3-4 years when they've been in the league together. Like, Tarik Skubal has gotten better and better and better each year. And yes, last year he did deal with injuries as well. He made 15 starts to a 2.8 ERA in 80 innings pitched, a 7-3 record. That's great. 2022, he was 7-8 with a 3.52 ERA. 2021, 8-12 with a 4.34 ERA, and then of course in COVID, a 5.63 ERA and a 1-4 record. So the way you look at that is each year, depending on how many innings and everything, still the ERA keeps dropping, his win-loss percentage keeps rising. It seems like every number of his improves each year, which means that 2024 is going to be another career year for the guy. And that's something that, as a Tigers fan, is really exciting. Like this guy keeps getting better and better. It seems like each year he plateaus, and then there's another level next year. And I mean, his strikeout stuff keeps getting better too. His pitches are getting better. He's becoming a sharp pitcher and a player that they can use on every 5 days, like every fifth start. He's gonna be 27, and he just looks great. And he's left-handed. He's got something. Then he can lead the Tigers somewhere special. And I mean, let's talk about Casey Mize quickly here too now, because this was supposed to be the guy, and he hasn't been the guy. 2021, definitely a good year for him. That was kind of the year that we Tigers fans were hoping for and to continue on. A 3.71 ERA in 30 games throughout the year. So that's great stuff, and that's stuff that they want for him this year, because in 2022, he made 2 starts with a 5.4 ERA, and then he had Tommy John surgery. And then while dealing with Tommy John surgery, he had back surgery, and he just kept getting, back and just kept getting hurt, and was never, having setback after setback. And I mean, here we are. Didn't pitch last year. So the last time Casey Mize was on the mound was April 14th, 2022, against the Kansas City Royals, where they had Whit Merrifield, Andrew Benintendi, Carlos Santana, Hunter Dozier, Mondesi, Michael A. Taylor, Nicky Lopez, all of which are not on the Royals. It's been a long time since Casey Mize was pitching for the Tigers, and I think if Casey Mize comes back this year and is part of that rotation and he's pitching well and he has a good year like he did in 2021, that's just another level for the Tigers to use and go off of, and just another aspect to this team. The Tigers team looks great. I am so optimistic now about these Tigers. They just look great. I think it's gonna be a good year to be a Detroit fan. If you're a Tigers fan out there, hey, you've got fun kids, you've got good major league talent. We've started to see some of these kids are ready for a little bit. Like Akil Baddoo, if he gets around. Torkelson Green, we've seen it for a couple years now. Let's see it again. Let's see how they do this year. This could be a huge year for the Tigers. And I'm hoping it is. The over-under for these Detroit Tigers, 79.5. I'm busting on the over. Pause. That sounded wrong. I'm taking the over, for sure. It's 80 wins. Absolutely. With this team, as long as injuries don't hold these guys back, we're talking about what could be a very successful Tigers team, a possible division winner. I kind of the same thing with the Royals, where because of how the AL Central is, there's hope for a division. I don't think I would trust the Tigers or take the Tigers against those AL East teams, those AL West teams that are, good and competing. But man, like, they're going to make huge steps this year, I feel like. As long as injuries don't hold them back, watch out for these Detroit Tigers in 2024. They look good, man. On paper, if the kids play and the pitchers pitch, we're talking about a good Detroit team here for 2024. That's my outlook. But that's going to do it for us here in this episode here for the TOPs. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. And I will see you guys all tomorrow.